Morning, everybody. Yes, it's the first Monday of the new year and of the new decade. It is January 6th. It is about 7:51 a.m. And I am going to do this as best I could before I hop into the shower and get myself ready to go to work today. But what I'm here to talk about is not work. What I'm here to talk about is the fact that in 2019 was basically looked at as the year, not just the last year of the last decade, but was also looked at as the year of finales. However, it was a year of very controversial mixed reaction finales. Yeah. In other words, finales to series, franchises that pretty much made people wonder, really? You went with that when you could have done something better? Or you could have done this? Yeah, something like that. So here I'm going to talk about some of them. And I will let you know that this will be unscripted, uncut, and on the fly. So without further ado, let's talk about some of those finales that ended franchises as they currently are known last year, and how a lot of fans, or some fans, reacted to them. Okay, so we start the list off with the first finale to a franchise that really got people talking. And when I mean got people talking, I mean people were not happy with what they got for a finale. They weren't. Just drinking some coffee there. But like I said, they were not happy with the finale they got to the overall franchise. And that, of course, was the phenomenon brought to us by HBO known as Game of Thrones, GOT. And it seemed for several seasons prior, GOT, Game of Thrones, could do no wrong. It seemed that no matter what the finale was, fans were cool with it. But it seemed, from what I understand, that in recent seasons, especially season, I think, season 7? Or something like that, 6? It seemed that the quality, especially when it came to finales, was dropping off. And that some people said that the signs were there that something wasn't right. Something was a little off behind the scenes. Well, we get to the last season, I think, which is season 8. And pretty much what a lot of people feared could possibly happen did. Because like I said, these fans felt that GOT, Game of Thrones, in previous seasons could do no wrong. And even though there were lackluster finales, more so than they should have been from previous seasons, they felt GOT could do no wrong. Well, unfortunately, they got proven wrong due to the fact that Season 8 was everything they did not want to happen. Season 8 basically was a nightmare come true. You see, basically Season 8, what many felt happened there was take a lot of characters and either kill them off, only to probably bring them back without any explanation or legit explanation, or cause characters to turn and go out of character for no ungodly reason, especially if it's a main character that you've been following, so on and so forth. And that's what the finale did. The finale took this one character, I can't think of the name right now, that the series, in a sense, and the fans along with the series have been following, and turned her, into a villain? Yeah, pretty much that's what it sounded like. The finale turned this one character into a villain? kind of basically brought her out of character and had her reasoning being for some unknown, unlegit, making no sense kind of reason. And this caused a lot of fans and followers of the show to hate the finale, and even to this day petition for a more proper finale to be done. They are even petitioning for HBO or someone to redo the season, believe it or not, redo all of season 8, but do it the right way. Now, some have said that the reason the series dropped off the way it did, the reason the finale ended the way it did, the reason the last finale, season 7's, didn't do as well, and the drop-off was happening, and basically made itself more known visually in season 8, especially with its series finale, was the fact that the person behind Game of Thrones, the book series that the show is based on, who also contributed to the series, had left. I don't know if he was let go or he decided to go and do other things, but the person behind the book series in which the show is based on left. And we know here on the internet that if there's one thing you don't do, especially if you're adapting a well-renowned book series that has a huge fan base and following, if there's one thing we know that you don't do, you don't screw with that book. You don't screw with the continuity of that book and go in a totally different direction. And that's what some fans felt that HBO and the people behind the television adaptation of Game of Thrones did. They messed with it. They messed with it, and they messed with it in a way that they shouldn't have. Which is why when everybody looks at series finales, or finales for series that came, or that happened, I should say, and happened in a very controversial way that got a mixed reaction, people are going to point at Game of Thrones as being one of those series that did exactly that. It basically was one of those series that ended in a very controversial way that it shouldn't have ended in, and it should have ended in a way that fans, especially fans of the entire franchise, from book to television, would hope it wouldn't have. And again, this is why, like I said, and I know I sounded like I rambled a little bit there, I do apologize, but it's like I said, we all know that if you adapt something from a source that people already know about and people are fans of, you can't change it so drastically to the point that you feel, it's not gonna matter, the series is over, it's not gonna matter. Yeah, it will. It will matter. So that's why, as I was saying, fans will look at Game of Thrones when people talk about when people discuss down the line what is the most controversial finale for a series or a franchise that you could think of. People are going to point to Game of Thrones as being one of the top controversial ones. And I'll tell you, what a way to kind of, bring 2019 into its prime, if you know what I mean, because this happened around the spring and summer of last year. So what a way to enter the prime era for 2019 with a finale, a controversial finale in Game of Thrones. But GOT wasn't the only one that got mixed reactions and what people felt was very controversial in its finale. Alright, so the next one I want to talk about is something that I'm a big fan of. In fact, I've even come out in this past decade, and admitted that I'm a fan, that I've become exactly what I said I would not be back in 2012, and that's a brony. Basically part of the brony community, the brony/Pegasista community, you name it. And that show I want to talk about is My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. Now, My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic ended its animated adaptation last year on October 12th with a primetime finale. Long story short, because the series was coming to an end, Discovery Family, along with Hasbro, decided to do a week-long Ponypalooza where they would showcase every season in its entirety. And they did exactly that, leading up to the finale. Now, they kind of repeated that over the Christmas holiday weekend, the Christmas and New Year's holiday weekend, but kind of mixed up a little bit of variety because they had to throw in some of the Christmas-related stuff as well when it came to the MLP franchise. But getting back to the finale obviously was a huge success ratings-wise. It was a huge success ratings-wise for Discovery Family, as well as a huge success when it comes to DVR viewing and stuff like that. But it wasn't without its controversy. You see, the finale originally aired unintentionally, believe it or not, about a month or so before, several weeks before, a month before, thanks to the Netherlands. Long story short on that, the Netherlands Videoland on-demand service ended up dumping not the first half of the final season, which was season 9, like they were supposed to or intended to, but instead they dumped the entire final season, all of season 9. That includes the series finale. So when a lot of folks saw the series finale, even though they couldn't understand it, and they had to get some translations, subtitles done, or created just to understand the scenario, the reaction was not good. It got to a point that the creative staff, like supervising director Jim Miller, had to shut down their Twitters or mute their Twitter accounts or the social media accounts because fans, supposedly fans, or diehard fans, or whatever you want to call them, supposedly, I think otherwise, threatened harm on the creative staff for doing what they did, for going the direction that they did. Now, I point out and say supposedly die-hard fans, but I think they were nothing more than just trolls that saw that some fans were angry and decided to get in on the action and try to make the Brony/Pegasus the community look a lot worse than it really was, a lot more angrier than it was. So, basically, fans were not happy, but not to the point that I think they would threaten the creative staff. Again, I look at trolls out there that probably just amplified that to make the fan base look bad. Anyway, though, the finale, when fans saw it thanks to the Netherlands doing what they did by accident, and then later on thanks to another hack, that's right, another hack on the Hasbro/DHX software or media, where basically someone hacked into their systems and leaked out the final few episodes. Fans, even after the hack, which put out the English versions of the episodes, and even after the official primetime finale, which was a movie, basically it was done in movie format in my opinion, basically a lot of fans were still very mixed about the ending. Even from, like I said, when it was unintentionally released and leaked thanks to the Netherlands dumping all of season 9 / the final season during the intended release of just the first half on the on-demand service, to the hacks, which had the official English versions, to the official debut, to the primetime movie finale of the series. There was still a lot of fans that had mixed reactions to this. I mean, even one person that I follow here on YouTube, Map, Miss Anthropony, was not too thrilled with it. And why were they not too thrilled with the finale? Several reasons, but two of the major reasons stick out. The first one was the twist that they felt was unnecessary. The twist being that the character of Discord, a former villain known as the Lord of Chaos, was actually the big bad Grogar in disguise. Yeah, Discord pretended to be Grogar from the beginning to the end. And why? Why did he disguise himself as Grogar? Basically, in his own chaotic mind, to help Twilight and her friends prove that they were ready to be the new rulers of Equestria by putting them through this test that would prove that they were ready. As well as try to bring three of the most unredeemable villains in the show together and try to get them to learn about friendship in his own chaotic way. And a lot of fans were not too happy with that revelation. In fact, a lot of fans, like Miss Anthropony, Map, even brought up the fact that Discord was putting the one pony he cared about probably more than the rest of the main 7, that includes Spike and even Starlight, that pony being Fluttershy, in danger. They pointed out that Discord was putting the one pony he cared about probably more than anything in the world, in Fluttershy, in danger because he wanted to prove a point. He wanted to, in his own chaotic way, try to prove to Twilight that, hey, you are a true leader and here's the ultimate test for you to prove that. So yeah, not a lot of fans were happy with the Grogar is Discord twist. But that wasn't the only thing. No. The other thing that fans were not too thrilled about was the last episode, the epilogue, called The Last Problem, which takes place many moons later, maybe about 10, 20 years. I would say 5 to 10 years in the future, in my opinion. Maybe 5 to 15 at the most, in my opinion. Where we see all the characters aged up, Spike included. Twilight is now Celestia size, so her design is basically a hybrid of her original design and Celestia's design. We see the characters have aged by 10 to 15 years, maybe. I would say maybe about 10 mostly, but then again, that's just my opinion. I think the artists, the creators, decided to take it a little bit further to kind of show that, yeah, it's the future, guys. So yeah, here's how they look like. So anyway, yeah, the future setting itself overall was one of the more controversial things that fans didn't like. And the reason I bring that up is because of the fact that not that long ago, Megan McCarthy, who else? Megan McCarthy, Jim Miller, Josh Haber, several people behind the series had said, and I think even Lauren Faust came out and said it, had basically said that Twilight would not outlive her friends. And yet, Twilight is shown in the future to be basically Celestia 2.0. And people were not too thrilled about that because that basically, in their minds, kind of changed everything and kind of pretty much stated that, yeah, Twilight's going to outlive her friends. She's going to outlive them by a significant bunch of years. Now, I've tried coming up with my own opinions and theories as to how that may or may not work. You can check those videos out here on my channel. But yeah, the future thing, they were not too thrilled with. They were not too happy with. I don't know if they've warmed up to it since then, after watching it several times. But yeah, they were not too happy with it because of the fact that it pretty much, in their eyes, spat in the face or spat in the statement that was given several years ago by those that I mentioned, stating that Twilight would now outlive her friends. And yet here we are in that same situation. So, it's just one of those things to where, even though in my opinion, when I did my review, you can check it out here on YouTube, even though in my opinion I thought the finale was okay, it's one of those situations to where, yeah, you can kind of see where fans are coming from about not liking several parts of the finale and why they felt that it shouldn't have been done in this way, and maybe they should, maybe try to redo it or make up for it, or at least give a good explanation down the line as to why they went that route. You can understand the frustration. It's because it's like, you build up, because I think honestly, guys, the one thing that really upset a lot of fans was they built up the fact that Grogar was coming. And Grogar is supposed to be the big bad. He's like the most powerful of all, right? And yet, what they do in the end is they just make it basically look like, or not look like, but in the end, what I'm trying to get at is they basically, use Grogar as bait, as clickbait, as a troll bait, to kind of say, yeah, he was in the series, but it wasn't really him. So, and then again, the future thing, fans are mixed about that. Some are okay with it, some are not, but it's just one of those situations to where even a series as good as My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, with its big fan base, even its series finale could be looked at in a very controversial way. And honestly, I think, and honestly, this is my opinion, I think that's why we're getting a season 10 comic, to kind of answer a lot of questions that even the finale left unanswered. Get answers to questions that, like I said, the finale left unanswered or even created. Now, there are other moments in there that fans were not too particularly fond of. Like, for example, you have the Student 6, I think as Little Shy FIM said in a Bronies React video, hijacking the episode by basically being like the heroes that brought everybody together, all the creatures together to help the main 7. And not just that, but also the villain's punishment in the end, with them being petrified into stone by Celestia, Luna, and Discord, and more specifically, Cozy Glow being a filly suffering that fate. So yeah, there were some controversial moments that make this finale, even though it was good in my opinion, one of the controversial finales of last year, in the final year of the last decade. But it wasn't the only one. The other one, believe it or not, is Frozen. Frozen 2. Now, yes, there is plans or word going around that a third Frozen movie is in development. But as of right now, this could be looked at as the finale, because where would you go with a third Frozen movie? How would that work? That's the one thing they got to look at. So for right now, with Frozen 3 still kind of like, not officially greenlighted yet, let's look at Frozen 2 as the finale. And the reason I say that this could be looked at as controversial, maybe not as much as the other two that I mentioned, is due to the fact that Elsa is due to the ending, is Elsa's story here. You see, we all thought Frozen was a good movie. The original Frozen was a good movie. It gave us a lot of what we wanted. It has gone on to be one of the more popular animated films, more successful animated films in history, with this one, of course, eclipsing it. But when you look at Frozen 2, there was one thing a lot of fans will say, that even though it's a good film, a lot of fans will basically look at the fact that you built up Elsa the way you did in the first film, you helped her accept who she is, and yet in continuity when you do the second film, you're kind of going backwards a little bit by having her kind of start to think that maybe she doesn't belong in Ellendale and she belongs somewhere else. And when you look at that, you wonder to yourself, then what was the point? You wonder and ask yourself, what was the point of the first film in her story arc there? Well, because apparently that was just the first chapter. This is the next, maybe the final chapter. Because in the movie, it's discovered, spoilers, she's the fifth elemental spirit. She's the fifth elemental spirit that brings and connects all the other elemental spirits together. And basically her destiny is not just to be the fifth elemental spirit that brings all the other elements together, but her destiny is to be the guardian of the enchanted forest. Yeah, she lives in a forest now. She's basically now ascended beyond being human. She is basically now, as some people pointed out, a goddess. And even though you might say, well, what's so controversial about it? What's controversial about it to some people, like I said, not as much as the other two that I mentioned, but what's controversial about it is, why didn't we get a clue about, what she was going to, of what her true destiny was going to be? It's like, why didn't we get maybe some clues and some hints in the first film that, hey, there might be more to Elsa than just, her accepting her new role as queen and accepting these powers that she has and, controlling them for good. Why regress her a little bit to even when she's just standing still for a moment, her powers are kind of doing what they did beforehand, kind of freezing stuff up when she doesn't intend to. I think that's why a lot of people look at the ending of Frozen 2 with her ascending to this new status of goddessness as, like, really? That was your end goal in the end? That was your plan all along? When did this come about? Why didn't we know about this? Why didn't you give us clues in the first film? Why didn't you put out little shorts here and there? People have questions. They want to know why they didn't know beforehand what they were going to get. Because I think, honestly, even though Frozen 2 is a good film, from what I understand, even though I have yet to see it, a lot of fans just feel that the finale could have been done better. Or at least the finale, the conclusion to Elsa's story could have been done better. Because really, in the end, it's not just Elsa's story either. It's also Anna's story, because Anna is part of this journey to learn her place, and she finds out, hey, Elsa's not destined to be the ruler of Ellendale, the queen. I am. So, and then it kind of hints at you she might have something too. But again, you get all these other questions that gets thrown into the movie, with the mother and her connection and her being granted this child with these special powers. It's like, even though it gives you some decent backstory and everything, it's like, really, it's like a lot of people are wondering, where did this all come from? It's like, where was the clues originally? Did we get any? Why didn't we get some clues in the first film? Why didn't we get some clues in Olaf's Frozen Adventure or that little Frozen short you did based around Anna's birthday? Why didn't we get any clues? That's what people were wondering. And I think that's why, even though there's a possibility with the Frozen movie coming, that right now Frozen 2 is looked at as the finale for the franchise until, like I said, the third one is greenlighted. People are going to look at this possible last chapter, Frozen 2, not as being a little bit controversial, but not much, because again, it's like, where did this come from? How did it come about? What was the decision? That's what they want to know. That's what they want to know. So, that's the third finale. We got one more. And it's the one that just really came out of nowhere and got people talking. Now, the fourth and final finale I want to talk about is the one that closed out the decade. The one that closed out 2019, and that is Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, this one. And you want to talk about a finale as a movie by itself, as a whole entire movie. You want to talk about a finale that really got people talking? This did it. Because even though I didn't see it when I had a chance to, and I'll still see it down the line, a lot of people were not too thrilled with this. It's like, okay, they were excited by the trailers and the prospect that Emperor Palpatine was coming back. They were excited by the fact that the Emperor was coming back, right? What they were not expecting was the revelation that Palpatine is the grandfather of Rey. Yeah, Rey is a Palpatine. She is the granddaughter of the Emperor. And it's hinted that she might also be a clone, or at least one of them. Again, not totally sure. But yeah, there was a lot. Apparently, you want some good examples. You want people really digging into this? Go to Angry Joe at the Angry Joe Show. Go to John Campa. Go to Black Nerd Comedy. Go to many of them, and they will basically all talk about the same thing. Like, what the heck was that? Because honestly, the movie might be good. I'm not saying it isn't. But it's more along the lines of, really? This is the direction you decide to go in. But even though the Palpatine reveal was bad in the eyes of a lot of fans, it was also the fact that in the end, Rey decides to take on the Skywalker name. Even though she's not related to Luke or Leia, she decides to take on the Skywalker name to try to distance herself from the Palpatine legacy. Yeah, The Rise of Skywalker was probably the Rise of Skywalker as a whole, as a whole movie. Throughout a majority of it, especially when you listen to what Angry Joe has to say, John Campa has to say, anybody else that's seen it has to say, yes, Rise of Skywalker as a whole movie, throughout most of it, is a very controversial finale. Because it's like, really? This is how you're going to end it? This is the direction you're going to go in? Okay, fine. It doesn't sit well with a lot of fans, I'll put it that way. But if that's the direction they wanted to go in, fine. But I'll tell you this, people expected Rise of Skywalker to be good. They just didn't expect it to be... They expected it to be good, and it probably was in some of their eyes, but they didn't expect it to join the list of controversial finales to franchises as we know them at the end of the year. They did not expect that. Reshoots, rewrites, or whatever. They did not expect this to end up in that category of controversial finales, and yet here we are. But yeah, Rise of Skywalker, definitely on the list. So that's really about it, guys. So in closing, those are your 4 controversial finales to franchises as we know them right now. Game of Thrones, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, Frozen 2, and Rise of Skywalker. Let me know down below what your thoughts are. Comment if you like. I'd love to hear what each and every one of you have to say about it. And I will talk to you later. I got to get in the shower, get ready for work. Peace.